My name is Eleanor Parker, and at 70, my daughter decided I'd lived alone long enough. She didn't ask me. She booked a tour. We were at brunch. Eggs, mimosas, the good linen napkins, when she slid a glossy brochure across the table and smiled like she was handing me a gift. We toured a beautiful place for you, Mom. Assisted living. You'll love the gardens. Her husband nodded along, checking his watch like the matter was already closed. Here's the thing they were all so certain about that morning. Whose apartment was whose? They were wrong. And that brochure wasn't even the worst thing in my daughter's purse. I sat down my coffee. I let the table go quiet. Then I said one calm sentence that pulled the floor out from under every plan they'd made without me. Welcome back to Grace and Grit Stories, where women the world wrote off quietly, find their footing and their voice. If a chapter of this ever sounds like your own life, you're exactly who I made it for. Drop a comment. Tell me where you're listening from, and be sure to subscribe. Let me tell you who I am, so the rest lands the way it should. I worked escrow for 22 years, closings, deeds, signatures. I read fine print for a living, and I was good at it. My husband George died when I was 48. No warning at all. One Tuesday, he was mowing the lawn, and by that Friday, I was a widow with a mortgage and a part-time job. So I built the rest of my life myself. I took the closing desk full-time. I saved every spare dollar. I bought one small rental, then a second, and I paid this house off the year I turned 59. People assume a quiet woman is a simple one. My family made that assumption for years. Lately, they talk about me in those gentle, careful voices. Mom's slowing down. Mom forgets her keys. I don't forget my keys. I stopped explaining myself to people who'd already made up their minds. George used to say I had a closer patience. Watch, wait sign last. I kept a work motto taped over my desk for 2 decades. Title doesn't care who sleeps in the house. It cares whose name it carries. I never thought I'd need that old line at my own brunch table. I was about to, because the daughter handing me garden photos didn't know which gardens were already mine, and I had spent 15 years saying nothing about it. Telling myself silence would be understood, that love would explain itself. That was my mistake, not pride, not weakness. I trusted quiet to do a job that only words can do. The brunch was Brooke's idea, which should have been my first clue. My daughter does not organize family gatherings. She attends them late with a reason she has to leave early. So when she picked the restaurant and the time I noticed, we sat in the corner booth at Harper & Stone, the brick place off Oakwood Drive, Lauren and her husband Michael on one side, my granddaughter Chloe beside me, my oldest friend Judith on the end. I'd invited Judith. Lauren hadn't loved that. Lauren was warmer than usual that morning. She touched my hand twice. She asked about my blood pressure, my knees, whether the stairs at home were getting to be a lot. Michael kept glancing at the leather bag by Brooke's feet. Not at his phone, at the bag. You look tired, Mom, Brooke said, smiling. Doesn't she look tired? I look 70, I said. It's going around. Chloe laughed into her orange juice. She was the only one at that table who hugged me like she meant it. Michael ordered for everyone without asking. Lauren complimented my cardigan, then complimented it again, which is what she does before she wants something. Judith caught my eye over the breadbasket. She'd seen 100 closings go sideways, too. She knew the look of a table being set for a deal nobody had told you about. I sipped my water. I let them warm me up. My daughter only smiles like that when she's about to ask for the thing she's already decided to take, and her hand kept drifting back toward that bag on the floor. She waited until the plates were cleared. Closers do that too. Mom, Michael and I have been worried about you, Brooke said. Really worried. Then she reached into the bag. The brochure was heavy, glossy, expensive. Maple Grove Senior Living. A photo of a silver-haired woman laughing at a watercolor class she would never actually take. Lauren slid it across the linen. We toured a beautiful place for you, assisted living. You'll love the gardens. You toured it, I said without me. We didn't want to overwhelm you, Michael said smoothly. It's safer. Staff around the clock. No more stairs, no more yard. It's $6,200 a month, I said. I'd seen the brochure's fine print upside down. Who's paying that exactly? Brooke's smile tightened a half-inch. We'd figure out the house, sell it, downsize you. It just makes sense, Mom. There it was. Sell the house. My house. You've been falling. Lauren pressed. You left the stove on last month. I've never left a stove on in my life. See, that's the thing. She lowered her voice for the whole table to hear. It's time, Mom. You can't be trusted on your own anymore. The word trusted sat there on the table like a dropped fork. Chloe went still beside me. Judith sat down her coffee very slowly. Michael slid the admission packet half out of his folder. The kind of move you make when you think the signature is already coming. They weren't worried. Worry doesn't tour. Worry doesn't price the house. Worry doesn't bring the paperwork to brunch. This was a plan. Dressed up as love. And they'd rehearsed it. So I did what I do best. I looked at the brochure. I looked at my daughter. And I picked up my coffee because the next thing I said deserved a clean, steady voice. I took my time. I drank. I set the cup back in its saucer without a sound. That's a lovely brochure, I said. Very glossy. Mom, I already toured your apartment. I let it land. It's listed for sale. For a second, nobody moved. Brooke's fork hit the plate. The sound was small and enormous at the same time. What? She said. Your apartment, I repeated. Pleasant as Sunday, the condo on Maple Avenue. I toured it Tuesday. The photographer came Wednesday. It went on the market this morning. That's not funny. Lauren laughed, but it cracked in the middle. You can't list my apartment, can I? I didn't say it like a question. Michael's smooth face did something it hadn't done all morning. It calculated. I watched him run the math behind his eyes and not like the total. She's confused, he said to Lauren quietly as if I weren't there. Tony, you're confused. I closed escrow on more homes than you've ever rented, Michael. I folded my napkin. I'm not confused. I'm prepared. Judith's mouth twitched. Chloe had stopped breathing. I did not explain how. I did not say one word about deeds or names or what I had signed 15 years ago. Let them sit in it. Lauren reached for her phone, then put it down, then picked it up again. You're bluffing, she said. She still thought it was a bluff. She would keep thinking that for about another week, right up until a stranger wanted to walk through her kitchen. I picked up the dessert menu like the conversation was over. The lemon tart here is wonderful, I said. Shall we? Lauren did not want the lemon tart. This is insane, she hissed. You can't just, Mom, look at me. This proves it. This is exactly the kind of thing we're talking about. What thing? This erratic threatening. You sound paranoid. That's the move. You understand. When the quiet woman finally speaks, they call it a symptom. I sound like someone who reads her mail, I said. Michael leaned in. Tony, nobody's the enemy here. We love you. We're trying to protect you from my own house from yourself. Judith made a small sound the kind a person makes when they decide to remember every word of this later. Good. I wanted a witness, and I'd brought one. Chloe's eyes were shining. Grandma's not paranoid, she said. She's the sharpest person at this table. Stay out of it, Chloe. Brooke snapped. I put 2 20s under my water glass for the staff and slid out of the booth slowly, deliberately, on my own 2 feet. We'll talk when you're ready to listen, I said. Right now, you're only ready to win. Mom, sit down. People are looking. Let them. I picked up my purse. I've spent 15 years being the one who sits down quietly. I'm done with that chair. I walked out past the hostess stand, past the couple at table 9 who'd stopped chewing to watch. The bell over the door rang behind me. I didn't slam it. I didn't cry in the car. I just sat there a moment, hands steady on the wheel, and let one question settle in. How does a mother end up owning the apartment her daughter calls home and never tell her why? The answer was in a cedar box on my kitchen counter. I drove home the long way past the Maple Avenue condo with the new sign already staked in the strip of grass out front for sale. My name on the listing, not hers. At home, I set the Maple Grove Senior Living brochure face down on the kitchen counter. I didn't throw it out. I wanted to remember exactly what they thought I was. Then I opened the cabinet where I keep my papers. The cedar box was my mother's. It still smells faintly of the closet she kept it in. Inside is the architecture of my whole quiet life. George's death certificate, the deed to this house, the rental papers, and 1 manila envelope I'd folded shut 15 years ago. I didn't open the envelope that night. I just held it. You should know how the condo happened because it matters. 15 years ago, Lauren's first marriage came apart in the worst way. Her husband emptied their accounts and went after everything, including the little apartment she was trying to keep. So Chloe, 6 years old, scared, would have a bed that stayed put. So I stepped in. I bought the Maple Avenue condo. I put it in my name on purpose so no lawyer of his could ever touch it. And I let Lauren live there for a token rent that drifted over the years to nothing. I never made her sign a thank you. I never reminded her. I thought love was clearer when you didn't keep a receipt. That was the silence I told you about. I let her come to believe the apartment was simply hers, the way children believe the lights stay on by magic. I'd kept that envelope folded for 15 years. By the end of the month, my whole family would learn what was inside and why I'd really kept it. But first, they tried to convince the world I was losing my mind. If you've ever been the quiet one in the family, the one everybody assumes will just go along, I see you. This is the part where I stopped going along. Stay with me. It only gets clearer from here. And if you believe a parent's dignity isn't up for a family vote, hit subscribe so the next chapter finds you. The text started that night. Lauren, Mom, I'm scared for you. You're confused and you won't admit it. Lauren, please let us help before you hurt yourself. Lauren, I already called Ryan. He agrees with me. Ryan is my son. 46, 2 states away, allergic to conflict since birth. If Lauren called him, it was to build a chorus, not to ask a question. My phone buzzed again at 11 o'clock, then again at midnight. I didn't answer. I made tea. I read every message twice, the way I used to read a contract, not for the feeling for the structure, and the structure told me something cold. This wasn't a daughter panicking. Panic is messy. This was tidy, confused, hurt yourself. Ryan agrees. Those were words being lined up on a record the way you line up exhibits before a hearing. She wasn't venting at me. She was documenting me. I'd watched it happen to a client once years ago. A son who wanted control of his father's accounts started a paper trail of incidents. One misplaced bill here. A confused phone call there. By the time anyone looked closely, the old man had a file 3 and thick, describing a decline that never happened. I set my phone down on the counter beside the Face-Own brochure, garden photos on one side, a campaign on the other. Same morning, same hand. They didn't want me safe. They wanted me declared. I rinsed my cup, dried it, and put it away. Then I sat at the table and started doing what I'd told myself for 15 years I'd never have to do. I started getting ready because if my daughter wanted a record, I'd make sure mine was the one that held up. By Sunday, the phone calls began. Not from Lauren, from the cousins. My niece Melissa called first syrupy with concern. Aunt Tony, we just want what's best. Lauren says you've been struggling. Struggling with what? The stove, the falling the Poe, outburst at brunch. I didn't fall. I left the restaurant. Lauren said you threatened to make her homeless. There it was already polished into a story. I'd threatened. I was unstable. The woman who paid off her own house at 59 had overnight become a danger to herself. Melissa, I said, did Lauren tell you who owns that condo? A pause. She said it's hers. Did she? I hung up gently. Then my cousin Thomas called with the same script. Then a church friend gently asking if I'd thought about getting evaluated. That word again, evaluated. I understood what was happening. Lauren wasn't just talking about me. She was assembling a jury. One phone call at a time, so that when the real move came, everyone would already believe the verdict. Everyone agrees you're slipping, Mom, she texted that evening. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Everyone. As if a person could be voted out of her own competence. I'll admit it stung, not the lie, the speed. How fast people I'd fed at this table chose the louder story. But I noticed something else, too. In every call, the same detail surfaced. The condo, the house, the money. Not my health, the real estate. Concern, it turns out, has a price tag if you read it closely enough. And somewhere out there, someone was writing the incidents down. Dates times a tidy little file. I just didn't know yet who was holding the pen. I found out who held the pen on a Tuesday at the grocery store. I was reaching for the oat milk Chloe likes when I overheard Michael in the next aisle on speaker, not bothering to lower his voice. No. The geriatric angle is cleaner than the financial one, he was saying. If we go capacity, the house follows. A second voice answered, oily and confident. Trust me, I've done a dozen of these. Families united. Doctor signs off. Judge does the rest. We just formalize what the family already sees. And the listing she put on Maple Avenue. A confused old woman trying to sell a property that isn't even hers. That helps us. That's the picture. I stood very still by the oat milk. When Michael turned the corner, he nearly walked into my cart. Beside him was a tall man in a too bright blazer, a lanyard around his neck. Andrew Collins, Senior Transition Consultant, the badge said. Realtor, the suit said. Tony Michael recovered fast. Funny running India. Hilarious, I said. Vance put out a hand like we were old friends. Mrs. Weston. I help families navigate these difficult seasons. I'd love to sit down just to listen. You'd love to list my house, I said. His smile didn't flicker. That's how I knew he was good at this. Lauren wanted my apartment vacated. Michael wanted the equity. But this man turned grief and worry into commission, and he'd done it a dozen times before. Think about your family, Vance said, soft as a closing pitch. I am, I said constantly. I rolled my cart to the register. My hands were steady. Inside, something had gone very quiet and very clear. They didn't just want me in a home. They wanted me declared incapable, and they'd hired a man who knew exactly how. Most people hearing all that would have fallen apart. I went to my filing cabinet instead. You spend 22 years in escrow. You don't panic about ownership, you check it. That night, I pulled the chain of title on the Maple Avenue condo. Purchased 15 years ago, grantee Eleanor M. Parker. No transfers, no quitclaim, no second name ever added. It was as clean as the day I signed it. Lauren had lived there 15 years and never once asked whose name was on the deed, because asking would have meant admitting she didn't pay for it. I sat with that a while, not gloating, just certain. Then I opened the cedar box and lifted out the old photo I keep beneath the deed. It's Lauren at 25, standing in the doorway of that condo the day she moved in. Chloe on her hip, 6 years old, both of them crying and laughing at once because they finally had a door that locked from the inside. I took that picture. I remember the relief in my own chest like it was an hour ago. I bought that apartment so my daughter could feel safe. Now my daughter wanted to use the same kind of paperwork to lock me away. I want you to understand something because it matters for everything that comes next. I wasn't angry. Anger is loud and it makes mistakes. I was accurate. I wasn't going to scream that I owned her home. I was going to be ready to prove it on paper in front of the people she'd recruited as her jury. I put the photo back. I put the deed on top of it. I closed the lid. And I made one phone call I never thought I'd have to make to a doctor. Chloe came by Thursday after her shift, still in her cafe, apron, eyes red. I heard them, she said before I'd even closed the door. Mom and Michael at dinner, I wasn't supposed to be home. I poured the oat milk. I waited. They have a folder, Grandma. Her voice shook like a whole binder. Michael keeps it in his office. Dates and stuff. Times you supposedly forgot things. I figured as much. There's worse. She pressed her lips together. They want to move fast. Michael said they have to do it before you change any paperwork. Before you talk to a lawyer, so that was the clock. They weren't afraid I was incompetent. They were afraid I was capable. Chloe, I said gently, this isn't your fight to carry. You raised me. She said it like a fact. Not a feeling. When Mom worked doubles, you were there. You taught me to ride a bike on Maple Avenue. I'm not leaving you, Grandma. I'm not a crier, but I had to look at the window a moment. Did you see what's in the folder, I asked? There's like a hospital form with your name already filled in. She swallowed. And papers about, I don't know, guardianship, power of something, power of attorney, the whole set. Okay. I said, thank you. You did the right thing telling me. What are you going to do? I thought about the deed, the photo, the doctor's appointment on my calendar for Monday. I'm going to let them keep building their case, I said, and I'm going to make sure mine is the one that's true. Chloe frowned. That's it. You're just going to wait. I smiled. Watch. Wait sign last. There's a folder I'd like to see for myself, I said. Before I went looking for paper, I gave my daughter one honest chance. I think you should always give the honest chance first, even when you know it won't take. I called Lauren on Friday morning. No cousins, no Michael, no audience. I'd like to talk, I said. Just us. No lawyers, no consultants, mother to daughter. Finally. Relief, then suspicion. Are you ready to be reasonable? I'm ready to listen if you are. She came over. She sat at my kitchen table where she'd done her homework for 18 years and she didn't soften an inch. "Mom, this is happening." She said, "You're 70. You're alone. The house is too much. I take care of 3 rentals in this house. I drive. I do my own taxes for now." She said it like a diagnosis. We're trying to get ahead of it. "Lauren," I kept my voice level. "I am not moving out of my home. That's not a negotiation. That's a no. You don't get to just say no. No is a complete sentence. I said I've been saying yes to you for 15 years. I'm allowed one no." Her jaw set. I saw the girl who used to slam doors all grown up and slamming them quieter. "You'll regret being difficult," she said, standing. "When the doctors agree with me, you'll wish you'd cooperated." "When the doctors," I repeated softly. "Not if." She didn't catch it. She was already gathering her keys. The door closed, not slammed. Worse businesslike. I sat in the quiet she left behind and understood the honest chance was spent. Words weren't going to reach her. She'd already moved past words into forms and folders and a man in a bright blazer. So I'd meet her there on paper. Chloe let me into the house Saturday while Lauren and Michael were at Maple Grove Senior Living touring it again, this time to pre-select my room. The irony was not lost on me. Michael's office smelled like cold coffee. The folder was exactly where Chloe said. 3rd drawer, a fat green binder unlabeled. I didn't take it. I'm not a thief, and a stolen binder proves nothing in a courtroom. I just read it page by page the way I've read 10,000 files while Chloe kept watch at the window. It was worse than I'd let myself imagine. 3 pages of incidents typed and dated. June 14th, left stove on per Brookie. July 2nd, forgot grandson's name. There is no grandson. August 9th, confused about ownership of own residence. That one made me laugh out loud quietly. They'd written my one true statement down as a symptom. Behind the incidents, a printed guardianship petition half filled in. My name, my birth date. A blank where a judge would sign, and behind that, the thing that turned my stomach to ice, a hospital pre-mission form for Maple Grove Senior Living, dated for the end of the month, my name typed at the top, a line at the bottom, waiting for a signature that was supposed to be mine or, failing that, a guardian's. They hadn't just toured a home, they'd scheduled my disappearance. There was even a sticky note in Michael's blocky hand. Get her to sign voluntarily first. Cleaner. If not capacity route by October 30th. October 30th. They'd given me a deadline. I closed the binder exactly as I'd found it. Spine out, drawer flush. Did you get what you needed? Chloe whispered. I got the calendar, I said. Now I know how long I have. 23 days. I had 23 days to be undeniable. Most people finding that binder would have driven straight to Brooks and set it on fire in the driveway. I understand the urge. I felt it in my hands. But I'd seen how this goes. You fight a lie with noise, and the noise becomes their next exhibit. See how agitated she is. See how unstable. They had manipulation. They had a smear. They had a man who knew the courthouse. I had something they kept forgetting I had. I knew how paper works. So I made my plan at the kitchen table in a steady hand. The way I used to map a closing one, a real cognitive evaluation. Not a friend, not a favor, a board-certified geriatrician, full battery dated and signed. If they wanted to claim I was incompetent, I'd hand the court proof I wasn't. 2. My estate. Locked tight. Irrevocable trust updated with a power of attorney naming someone I actually trusted. If they wanted my house, they'd find every door already deadbolted by law. 3. Let the listing run. The Maple Avenue condo would stay on the market, legal and public. My name on every page. Their own confused old woman would turn out to hold the only deed in the family. I wasn't going to argue with a lie. I was going to outdo it. I wrote one line at the bottom of my plan and underlined it twice. Stay calm. Calm is the proof. Because here's what I knew that they didn't. A loud old woman looks exactly like their story. A calm one holding clean paperwork breaks it in half. I had 23 days a doctor's appointment and a lawyer to call. I made the coffee, I picked up the phone, and I got to work. Dr. Rebecca Hayes had been my doctor for 9 years. I'd never needed her for anything but flu shots and a stubborn knee. I sat in her office and told her the whole thing, the brunch, the folder, October 30th. She didn't gasp or pat my hand. She got out her test forms. Full neuropsych battery, she said. Memory executive function judgment. We date it, we document it, we make it airtight. It took 2 hours. Clock drawings, word lists, numbers backward. The kind of test that has no mercy and no favorites. 3 days later, she called me in for the results. She slid a signed sealed report across the desk. Cognition intact across all domains, she read. No evidence of impairment. I'd be comfortable saying that to a judge. You may have to, I said. Then I drove to Margaret Sullivan, the estate attorney I'd sent 100 clients to over the years. Ruth is 73 and does not suffer foolishness. She read my situation in about 4 minutes. They're running a capacity play, she said flatly. Classic. And the listing on the condo, my name clean title, 15 years. Ruth almost smiled. Then they've built a case against a woman who holds the deed in a doctor's note. She pulled out fresh forms. Let's lock the estate. Trust durable power of attorney healthcare directive. By the time they file anything, there will be nothing left to grab. I named Chloe and Ruth jointly on the documents. Not Lauren, not Ryan, the 2 people in my life who'd shown up without an angle. I signed everything in a steady hand, dated and witnessed. George would have liked Ruth. She signs last too. Now everything was ready. I just had to wait for them to walk into it. They felt me getting ready. People always do, even when they can't say what they sense. So Lauren escalated. The email went out to the entire family on a Wednesday. Subject line: an honest update about mom. 22 relatives copied cousins, in-laws, the church friends. I'll spare you all of it. The gist: I was declining. I was lashing out. I had threatened to render my own daughter homeless. The family would be gathering soon to make a loving plan for mom's care. A loving plan for mom, whether mom liked it or not. Within the hour, my phone filled with replies. Also, sorry, Lauren, you're such a good daughter. Let us know how to help. One cousin actually wrote, Tony was always stubborn. Stubborn. Yes, I paid off a house being stubborn. Then came the call I expected. Ryan, my son, finally weighing in from his safe 2 states away. Mom, I don't want to take sides, he said, which is what people say when they've already taken one. Then, don't sign anything, I said. Brooke's overwhelmed. She just needs everyone on the same page. Which page is that, Ryan? The one with my hospital admission already filled out. Silence. He hadn't known that part, or he had and didn't want to. It's not like that, he said weakly. It's exactly like that. I've read it. I let him sit in the quiet a moment the way I used to when he'd lied as a boy. There's going to be a family meeting. He finally said, Bru's setting it up at your house. She thinks if everyone's there, you'll see reason. Oh, I'll come. I said I wouldn't miss it. A meeting and audience, everyone she'd recruited in one room. She thought she was building a courtroom. She was building my stage. I want to be fair to my daughter even now. So let me tell you what I learned about why Chloe brought it to me, because Chloe notices things. A second envelope had fallen out of Michael's binder. A bank letter he hadn't meant to leave loose. It was a notice of default, a home equity line $180,000 drawn against their house 3 months behind. Underneath it, a dissolved LLC notice. Michael's last business venture gone, taking their savings with it. They weren't rich people scheming for more. They were drowning, and they'd looked around for the nearest thing that could keep them afloat. A house paid off, owned by a 70-year-old woman they'd decided was on her way out anyway. And there was the older wound underneath it. 15 years ago, I'd rescued Lauren once before with that very condo. She'd never had to learn to swim, so when the water rose again, she didn't reach for a job or a budget. She reached for me the way she always had, except this time reaching for me, reaching past me. I understood it. I even ADHD over it. The girl crying in that doorway with ivy on her hip had grown into a woman who couldn't tell the difference between being saved and being owed. But understanding is not the same as allowing. Desperation explains a person. It does not entitle them to your front door, your deed, or your name on a hospital form. I sat with the default notice a long time. I thought about quietly paying it off. The old reflex rescue first ask, never then I put it down. That reflex was exactly how we got here. I'd love my daughter into believing love was a checkbook she could write against forever. Not anymore. The most loving thing left to do was stop catching her. The meeting was in 9 days. I know how this feels from the inside. When the people you raised start talking about you in the third person in a room you're standing in. If that's a wound you carry, leave one word in the comments here. I read them all. And if a calm paper and patience kind of justice is your idea of satisfying, subscribe now, because the meeting they set to corner me is where every single thing turns. Lauren called to invite me to my own house. Sunday at 2, she said, "Everyone's coming. Ryan's flying in. Please be open-minded, Mom." In my own living room, I said, "How generous." "Don't be like that. We're doing this because we love you." "I'll be there," I said. 200, I'll make coffee. She paused, thrown by how easy it was. She'd braced for a fight and gotten a hostess. "You're being weirdly calm about this," she said. "I'm 70, I said. "I've stopped wasting energy." After she hung up, I'll admit I sat there grinning at the kitchen wall. They thought they were setting a trap. They were sending in their RSVP to one. I called Ruth. "Sunday at 2, my house. Full family. The consultant will be there with papers." "Want me present?" she asked. "No," I said. "If a lawyer's in the room, they'll say I'm being coached. I want it to be just me, my family, and the truth. But I want you on the phone on speaker if it comes to it. Witnesses. Judith. She was at the brunch and Chloe lives it every day." "Good," Ruth said. 2 clean witnesses beat 22 coached cousins. I made one more arrangement the quiet kind. I called the real estate agent handling Maple Avenue and asked a simple question about the listing. She had news for me. Good news, the kind I'd been waiting for. I thanked her, hung up, and looked at my calendar. Sunday at 2 circled. Outside, the leaves had started to turn. October does that. Everything bright right before it lets go. I'd spent my whole life signing other people's important days into the record. Sunday, I'd sign my own. Saturday night, I laid everything out on the dining table and packed it the way I'd want a stranger to find it. In order, clean, undeniable. I started with the cedar box. I emptied it gently the way you handle the past. In went the deed to the Maple Avenue condo. Eleanor M. Parker, sole owner, 15 years clean. In went the printed listing. My name, the address. The photos of the kitchen where Lauren made Chloe's lunches. In went Dr. Ferris's report, sealed, signed, dated 11 days ago, cognition intact across all domains. In went the trust documents and the durable power of attorney witnessed and notarized, locking every asset I owned behind the law. And on top of all of it, last I placed the photograph. Lauren at 25 in that doorway, Chloe on her hip, both of them crying and laughing. Finally, safe behind a door I'd bought so no one could take it from them. I looked at that picture a long time. Everything I needed to win fit inside one cedar box that used to hold my mother's recipes. Not a recording, not a notebook of every dollar I'd ever spent on them. I'd never kept those. And I'm glad this wasn't a ledger of resentment. It was a record of love and law, which it turns out are the only 2 things that hold up under pressure. I closed the lid. The hinge gave its small, familiar creak. Tomorrow they'd sit in my living room, certain they'd already won, and I'd open this box one item at a time. I set it by the front door so I wouldn't forget it as if I could. Then I went to bed and, to my own surprise, slept like a woman with nothing to hide. Ryan came early Sunday morning, before the others knocking like he wasn't sure he was allowed in. He looked older, tired around the eyes the way his father got when money was bad. "Mom." He stood on the porch, hands in his pockets. "Can we talk before everyone gets here?" I let him in. I poured 2 coffees. We sat. "I don't think you're crazy," he said finally. "I want you to know that. I never thought that. And yet your name is on a family email saying I'm declining." He flinched. "I didn't write it. You didn't stop it either." He stared into his cup. "Lauren and Michael are in real trouble, Mom. The money kind. I thought if everyone agreed it'd be quieter, easier. Nobody wants a fight in the family." There it was. The whole shape of my son in one sentence. He didn't want me harmed. He just wanted it handled smoothly with his hands clean. Easier for who, Ryan? He didn't answer. For one moment I saw the boy he'd been 9 years old. The one who'd hide when his parents argued and come out only when it was over. He wasn't cruel. He was a coward, and cowardice had let him sign his name to my disappearance because disappearance is quiet. "You could still choose differently," I said. "Today in that room." He looked at me, and for a heartbeat I thought he might. Then he looked away. "Brooke's my sister," he said. "I have to back her." I nodded. I'd given him the honest chance too. Finish your coffee, I said. They'll be here soon. He drank it. He didn't look at me again. Some people show you they're human right before they prove they won't act like it. At 1:30, Chloe slipped in the back door and found me in the kitchen. Grandma. She was breathless. I have to tell you before they get here the condo. I know, I said. The agent called Friday, you know. Her eyes went wide. Mom doesn't know. She thinks it's still a bluff. It wasn't a bluff. It had never been a bluff. The Maple Avenue condo had an offer. Full asking. $415,000 cash, 15-day close. A young couple with a toddler who'd cried, the agent said when they saw the kitchen. They wanted to move in by the first of the month, the same week. Michael's calendar said I'd be checking into Maple Grove Senior Living. I almost laughed at the symmetry. While they'd been scheduling my exit from my house, I'd been arranging Brooke's exit from hers, legally, publicly, with her name on nothing. I already toured your apartment, I murmured mostly to myself. It's listed for sale. The line that had cracked a fork in half at brunch was now a signed contract on my counter. Chloe looked sick. Where's Mom gonna live? It was the right question. And it told me everything about which of them I'd raised right. That I said gently is a question your mother should have asked before she scheduled my room at Maple Grove Senior Living. I didn't say it with cruelty. I said it like a closing statement. A car pulled into the driveway, then another, doors slammed, voices. Chloe squeezed my hand. Stay by the window, I told her. Whatever happens, you don't have to say a word unless you want to. Just be a witness. The doorbell rang in my own house. I picked up the cedar box and went to let my family in. They filled my living room like they owned it. Lauren Michael, Ryan, 4 cousins, 2 church friends, and Andrew Collins in a blazer the color of a traffic cone. I made coffee. I offered the good cookies. I let them get comfortable. Mom, sit down, Brooke said, taking my own armchair. We need to talk. I sat on the sofa, cedar box beside me, lid closed. Judith sat at the end. Chloe stood by the window. Vance led, of course. He had a leather portfolio and a gentle, practiced voice. Mrs. Weston, your family loves you very much. They're concerned about your safety and your judgment. He opened the portfolio. We've prepared some documents just to make things easier. A voluntary transition agreement and a healthcare authorization. He slid the papers across my coffee table toward me, toward the pen he'd thoughtfully placed on top. We just need your signature, he said, and we can all stop worrying. Sign it, Mom, Brooke said. Her voice wobbled between command and plea. Please, before this gets ugly. And if I don't, Michael spoke for the first time, flat and cold. Then we let the court decide whether you're fit to be making these decisions at all. The room went quiet. They thought the quiet meant they'd won. A cousin murmured, It's for the best, Tony. Ryan studied the carpet. I looked at the papers. I looked at the pen placed so helpfully, pointing toward the rest of my life in a building with a watercolor class I'd never take. I'm not signing anything today, I said. My hand didn't shake. I noticed that after 15 years of going along the one time it mattered most, my hand was perfectly still. Mom, but since everyone's here, I said, let's make a loving plan together. And I reached for the cedar box. Before I opened this, I said, resting my hand on the lid, I want to be fair. Everyone in this room got one version of the story. Brooks, you all answered her email. You all came to help me see reason. Heads nodded uncertain. So I'm going to give you the other version, not shouted, not in an email. Right here where you can see it with your own eyes and decide for yourselves. Mom, don't make a scene, Lauren said. This isn't a scene, sweetheart. It's a closing. I've done thousands. They're very calm. Vance shifted in his bright blazer. Mrs. Weston, I really don't think you're a guest in my home, Mr. Cruz. I said, you'll get your turn to talk when I want to buy something. A cousin snorted a laugh, then caught herself. Judith, I said you were at the brunch. You heard what was said. Every word Judith said, I wrote it down that night. And Chloe lives close to this family. She's seen things up close. Chloe nodded once steady. I felt the room tilt just slightly. The jury Lauren had assembled was no longer sure which way the verdict ran. That's the thing about an audience. You can borrow it, but you can't keep it. The moment a calmer, clearer story walks in, the crowd quietly switches sides and they never tell the loud one they've gone. I opened the cedar box. The hinge creaked in a silent room. This is everything I said, Every claim made about me answered on paper. Let's go through it together, item by item, and then you can all decide who in this house actually needs looking after. I lifted out the first document. Lauren leaned forward, and for the first time all month she looked afraid. I held the first paper but didn't unfold it yet. I wanted one breath of honesty before the proof. You all think this is about a house. I said it isn't. It's about a word. Trusted. My daughter said I couldn't be trusted on my own. I looked at Lauren. So, let's talk about trust. 15 years ago, your husband cleaned out your accounts and came after everything you had. You stood in a doorway with Chloe on your hip and nowhere to go. Brooke's face changed. She hadn't expected the past in this room. Who showed up? I asked quietly. Who made sure that man could never touch the roof over your daughter's head? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Everyone there knew. I'm not saying it to shame you, I said. I'm saying it because you stood in a safe doorway I built, and 15 years later, you used the same kind of paperwork to try to lock me out of mine. The cousins were very still now. The church friends looked at their hands. Chloe had tears on her face by the window. She remembered that doorway? She'd been 6. Ryan finally looked up at me. Too late, but he looked. I loved you all the quiet way. I said no receipts, no reminders. I thought that was the higher kind. I was wrong about that. Quiet love lets people forget where the floor came from. I unfolded the first document. So, here's me, finally speaking up. Better late than buried in a brochure. Judith let out a breath that was almost a laugh. I turned the paper around so the whole room could see it. Let's start, I said. With whose name is on what, and I laid the deed on the coffee table, but before the deed, Michael made his move. They always do the cornered ones. He stood up, reached into his bag, and dropped the Maple Grove Senior Living brochure on the coffee table right on top of my deed, covering it like he could bury the paper under the picture. The same glossy brochure, the silver-haired woman, the watercolor class, the gardens, and clipped to it. Now the Maple Grove Senior Living pre-mission form my name typed at the top. This is the responsible plan, Michael announced to the room, loud performing for the cousins. A safe place professional care. We've already reserved her room for the first. He tapped the form. All we need is a signature. Hers or the court's. We'd rather it be hers, a church friend murmured. Approval. Lauren nodded, gathering her cousins' faces back to her side. For a moment, the brochure sat on top of my deed. The lie on top of the truth, and the room leaned toward the brighter picture the way rooms do. I let it sit there. I didn't snatch it away. Snatching looks like panic, and panic was their whole story. Instead, I picked up the brochure with 2 fingers, the way you lift something you're returning, and I read the price aloud. $6,200 a month, I said. For me, funded by selling my house. I set the brochure down face up beside the deed, not over it. Let's leave that right there, I said. Picture of where they want me. Now let me show you the paperwork they hoped I'd never read. I slid the deed out from under the brochure and held it up. Michael, I said you're about to learn the difference between a person who tours a home and a person who owns one. Vance's pen, abandoned on the table, suddenly looked very small. Brookie saw the deed coming and panicked the only way she knew how. She went louder. Don't listen to her, she said, standing, turning to the cousins. This is what I've been telling you. She gets fixated. She makes up stories about owning things. Lauren, she thinks she owns my apartment now. Lauren laughed, sharp and brittle, sweeping a hand at me. Do you hear her? It's time, Mom. You can't be trusted on your own. This is exactly why we're here. The words hung in the air. The same words from the brunch table, and this time the room didn't move with her. They looked at the steady woman on the sofa with the box of papers, and they looked at the shaking woman in the borrowed armchair, and something quietly turned. Sit down, Lauren, Ryan said softly. Let her talk. His own sister. He couldn't choose me, but he couldn't stomach the sound of her anymore either. Stay out of it, she snapped at him. Honey, Judith said in the tone she'd use on a child near a hot stove. You might want to hear this before you say anything else. Vance closed his portfolio. He'd done a dozen of these. He knew the exact sound a deal makes when it dies, and he just heard it. Lauren looked around the room for her jury and found a row of people leaning away from her. Mom, she said, and now there was fear under the anger. What's in the box? I'd waited 15 years to be asked that question by someone ready to hear the answer. She wasn't ready, but she was about to find out anyway. Everything I said calm as still water. Let's start with your front door, and I read the name on the deed out loud. Maple Avenue Condominium. I read level and clear, Grantee Eleanor M. Parker, recorded 15 years ago. No transfers, no second name ever. Silence. That's the apartment my daughter has called hers for 15 years. I said it has never for one single day been in her name. It's in mine because I bought it. Brooke's mouth opened. Nothing came out. I set the deed down and lifted the next page. This is the listing. Same condo on the market legally by the owner, me. I laid it beside the deed. As of Friday, it has a buyer. Full asking $415,000. They close on the 1st. A cousin gasped. Michael sat down hard. I lifted the third document. This is a full cognitive evaluation dated 11 days ago, signed by a board-certified physician. Cognition intact across all domains. No impairment. I looked at Vance. Your capacity case is a single sheet of paper. For Mr. Cruz. So is mine. Mine has a doctor's signature, and yours has a sticky note. I set down the report and reached for the green binder I'd had Chloe retrieve that morning. Michael's binder, the one with the dated incidents and the half-filled petition. Michael went white. I won't read the whole thing, I said gently. But there's a note inside in your handwriting, Michael. Get her to sign voluntarily first. Cleaner. If not capacity route by October 30th. I closed the binder. You didn't tour a home for me, I said. Still calm, still quiet. You scheduled a disappearance and gave it a deadline. Then the last document, the trust, the power of attorney, and in case anyone in this room still thinks they're getting my house, I said, every asset I own is now inside a trust the law won't let you touch. I did that 2 weeks ago while you were pre-selecting my room. I folded my hands on top of the cedar box. You can't move someone, I said. Who owns the room? Across the coffee table. My daughter stared at the deed with her own name nowhere on it, and the entire month collapsed in her eyes. Then I did the thing I dreaded most. I reached for the photograph. Brew. I said, look at this before you say another word. I turned it around. Her at 25, Chloe on her hip, the doorway of the Maple Avenue condo the day they moved in safe. I bought that apartment so a man couldn't take the roof off your daughter's head, I said. I put it in my name so no court of his could reach it. I never made you thank me. I never reminded you. I thought that was love. My voice didn't rise. I'd promised myself it wouldn't. You took the safety I built you and turned it into the blueprint for locking me away. I set the photo on the table between the deed and the brochure. Concern is a gift, I said. You sent me a bill. Lauren broke. But not the way you'd hope. You're punishing me. She screamed on her feet now. You want me on the street, your own daughter, after everything I do for you. She was crying, but it was the crying that demands, not the crying that's sorry. This is elder something. This is abuse. I'll sue you. I'll take you to court and tell them everything. Tell them I said. I have a deed, a listing, a doctor's letter, and your husband's handwriting. Bring it all to a judge, please. Michael didn't yell. Michael did worse. He picked up his folder, smoothed his jacket, and said, flat as a closed door. We'll see what my lawyer says. Then he walked out. No apology. Just arithmetic. Vance was already gone. I hadn't even seen him leave. And Ryan. Ryan sat with his hands over his face and would not look at me. Not in shame that fixed anything, just shame. He'd had the morning to choose and the room to choose, and he'd let it pass twice. The cousins didn't say it's for the best anymore. The room had a new verdict. It just hadn't said it out loud yet. I stood up slowly on my own 2 feet in my own living room. Here's the loving plan, I said. Since everyone came for one. The room went still. I'm staying in my home. That isn't on the table, and it never was. The condo sells on the 1st. I won't be funding anyone's HELOC, and I won't be catching anyone who jumped on purpose. Lauren made a wounded sound. I kept going gentle and final. Lauren, I love you. I will love you until the day I die. But I'm done being the floor you stand on while you reach for my walls. You have until the 1st to find a place. I'll help you move boxes. I won't help you avoid the lesson. Mom, please, my door is open, I said. My deed is mine. Both of those are true, and you'll have to learn to live with both. I looked at the cousins at the church friends who'd answered an email about a woman they hadn't bothered to call. Coffee's still warm if anyone wants it, I said. Otherwise, I think this meeting's adjourned. One by one, they gathered their coats. A few mumbled apologies on the way out. The embarrassed kind. The kind that comes too late to mean much but still counts for something. Judith stayed. Chloe stayed. Lauren was the last to leave. Mascara ruined looking back at me from the doorway, my doorway, with no idea that she was standing in the exact spot from the photograph. She didn't recognize it. That, more than anything, told me I'd made the right call. I closed the door behind her. Not slammed, just shut with a steady hand. Then I sat down with my 2 witnesses. And for the first time in a month, the house was quiet because I'd chosen the quiet, not because I'd been told to hold my tongue. Here's how it landed in the plain numbers I trust more than feelings. The Maple Avenue condo closed on the first $415,000 clean. The young couple's toddler now naps in the room where Chloe learned to walk. Michael's $180,000 line of credit was their problem, not mine. And without my house to raid, they had to face it the ordinary way. They downsized to an apartment, a rented one in both their names. The guardianship petition was never filed. You don't bring a capacity case against a woman holding a clean neuropsych report. Vance knew it, which is why Vance evaporated. No commission, no case, no blazer at my door again. A handful of cousins called to apologize. I accepted and I noted who never did. Ryan emailed. 3 lines. He was sorry it got so heated. Not sorry he'd signed on, sorry it got loud. I wrote back 2 words. I know. We talk now a little carefully. Lauren sent a long message a week later. I only ever worried about you, Mom. I can't believe you do this to family. The manipulative kind. The kind with no apology in it. Only a fresh invoice. I read it once. I didn't write back. Some letters don't deserve a reply, only a closed lid. I took the Maple Grove Senior Living brochure off my counter at last. I folded it, once slid it inside the old listing sheet for the condo. The lie tucked inside the truth that beat it and dropped them both in the recycling. Then I put the deed and the photograph back in the cedar box where the safe things live and set it on the shelf. The hinge creaked shut the way it has my whole life. The house was mine. It always had been. Concern is a gift, not an invoice, not a verdict, and never a key to your mother's front door. That's my story. 1 brochure, 1 cedar box, 1 steady no. If it reminded you to check whose name is on what, do it this week. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.